Hello and welcome to the UModeler X tutorial video. I will now proceed with the creation of a short sleeve top Zepeto item using Unmodeler X. To use Unmodeler and Zepeto Studio simultaneously, you must install and update Zepeto Studio to keep it up to date. First, install UModeler X using Unmodeler Hub in the Unity project where Zepeto Studio is installed. To make modeling Zepeto items easier, download and install the Zepeto Rigging Helper package file from the UModeler Hub. Inside the Zepeto Rigging Helper folder, drag the creator-based Zepeto file into the scene. Position the coordinates to 0, 0, 0. Select an object in the hierarchy window and press F key to focus the camera on that object. The initial Unity scene had the light orientation reversed, so the shadow is backlit on the sample body. To fix this, let's change the direction of the light. Select the directional light from the hierarchy window and press E key to enable the rotate gizmo and rotate it along the green guide. The light has been rotated and the shadow has changed to look better. Now, let's create a UModeler X object. At the top of the scene view, click the boxed icon in the middle of the UModeler X icons to see the UModeler X object created in the hierarchy. In the inspector window, you'll see icons related to the UModeler X. Let's create a box that will be a base shape. In the UModeler X inspector, select the box tool in the primitive shapes group and drag the bottom side to create it. Then move the mouse up to create the sides with height. Since it was created in a random location, change its coordinates to 0, 0, 0 to align it with the body. But it doesn't exactly match the body. This is because the first place you clicked when you created the object became the pivot, so the pivot position is skewed to one side. To fix this, you need to move the pivot back to the center of the box you created. Resetting the pivot using the Pivot to Center tool within the MISC group will reset the pivot to the center of the box. Again, in the inspector, aligning the coordinates to 0, 0, 0 will make the body and the center of the box match. Let's use the Loop Cut tool to increase the number of faces. After selecting the Loop Cut tool in the Add group, hover over a face of the box and you'll see a guide in blue. If you hover the cursor close to a horizontal edge of the box, you'll see a vertical guide in blue, and you'll click on it to split the center. The faces that the guide passed were splitted, so the number of faces increased. Let's modify the model to match the body. However, you can't see the body shape because the box covers it, so at the top of the scene, select the Vertex tool among Vertex, Edge, and Face Element tools and turn on X-ray mode in the inspector. When X-ray mode is turned on, it makes the box translucent so you can see the shape of the body inside and modify its shape. Select the Vertex tool among the element tools, then drag the mouse to select multiple vertices within the region. Pressing W, E, or R key enables the gizmo type to change to Move, Rotate, or Scale gizmo. To move vertices, press the W key to activate the Move gizmo and move them. Since a person and the clothes they wear are symmetrical from side to side, they are modeled with a mirror feature that allows you to modify one side and make the other side the same. Let's use the mirror feature with a modifier. Add the mirror among any of the modifiers in the modifier stack that come out by pressing the plus button. You can see that a center axis is created. The direction the arrow is pointing is the direction that will be duplicated. Select the source mesh again in the modifier stack and move the vertices to modify the box to fit the body shape. If you don't have enough faces, use the loop cut tool to split the faces. The loop cut divides a quad face by connecting the sides in a direction perpendicular to the nearest edge when you hover over it. Use the element tools such as the Vertex, Edge and Face tool to edit the box shape to make a natural body shape. Holding down the Shift key while selecting a vertex or an edge will add it to the existing selected vertices or edges. With the body somewhat shaped, let's create the sleeves. After selecting the face of what will be the area of the arm, you can move the Move gizmo while holding down Shift to move it around while creating faces through the Extrude feature. Make the created sleeves look natural as well by editing the elements using the gizmo. To make room for the neck, select the faces that intersects the neck and run the eraser tool or press its shortcut, Delete key, to erase it. Similarly, select the sleeves and waist faces that intersect the body and erase them. Once again, clean up the t-shirt mesh you created to make it look better if necessary. Let's collapse the modifier stack. The mirror modifier you created earlier adds a mirror effect without changing the data in the original mesh. This is similar to a layer in Photoshop that gives an effect without affecting the original image. However, in order to create the final model where the mirror effect is reflected, you will need to apply the changes made from the modifier to the original mesh via the collapse. The first icon in the lower right-hand corner of the modifier stack is the collapse icon. Pressing this button will apply the changes up to all modifiers from the source mesh to the selected modifier to the original mesh. With the mirror modifier selected, let's press the collapse button. The mirror modifier was collapsed and the mirror modifier effect was applied to the original source mesh. Use the Subdivide tool in the Add group to increase the number of faces entirely. Each time you click the Subdivide tool, the number of faces increases, transforming into a smoother shape. You'll just click once this time. Let's take this subdivided mesh and use the tools in the Deform group to give it a more natural shape. Select the Relax Brush tool in the Deform group. This creates a circular guide that follows the cursor, which is called a brush. and vertices within this circular area will be affected when you drag the brush. If you see vertices that need to be individually modified while using the Relax tool, switch to the element tools and modify them using the gizmos. After selecting the Edge tool at the top of the scene, double-clicking on an edge in the mesh will select all connected edges in the direction of the edge the cursor is pointing. Modify the selected edges with the gizmos. As with the face extrude, selecting edges of the neck boundary and holding down Shift while pulling with the scale gizmo will create new faces along the edge. Add the mirror modifier again. Where the Relax brush was applied on one side, it is duplicated on the other side, changing the positions of the vertices. Use the Vertex, Edge, and Face element tools as well as the Relax brush tool and Loop Cut tool described earlier to finalize the basic t-shirt shape. You'll use the Smoothing Group feature to soften the angular t-shirt faces. In UModeler X, faces with the same smoothing group are shown as a single curved surfaces. The selected faces can be grouped to be a smoothing group via the number buttons that are only exposed when the face tool is selected. If you select the face element tool, then select all the faces and hit Group 1 button in the inspector, they will all be grouped into the same smoothing group. Conversely, pressing 1 button again will cancel the smoothing group. You'll group all the faces of the t-shirt into one smoothing group so that the whole thing looks smooth. You'll use the features you learned earlier to complete the overall shape of the t-shirt. With the shape created, you'll work on the inside of W here, the sleeve and the waist end. Double-click the edge of the sleeve end to select the loop and pull it using the extrude function to create it. From the edges, use the scale gizmo to pull it inward to make it smaller, then use the move gizmo to push it inside the sleeve. Tuck in the waist in the same way. Finally, the Zepeto t-shirt model is finished. Now let's start working on the rigging. Rigging is the process of connecting your model and bones to make them animatable. Let's take a t-shirt model that you created in a T-shape and transform it into an S-shape for rigging. First, delete the T-shape pose mesh that is placed in the scene. The T-shape is convenient for modeling, but an S-shape pose is advantageous for rigging for animation. So you import the transfer mesh pose file from the Zepeto helper package downloaded from the hub and make the coordinates 0, 0, 0. Rename the t-shirt object to top, add the mirror modifier, and modify the t-shirt to fit the imported pose. Make the wires tighter at the armpits and wider at the top of the shoulders to create a more natural animation. The rotate gizmo and move gizmo can be used to change the orientation and position of all selected edges at once. If you don't have enough faces for the modification, use the loop kit tool to split the faces. If the sleeve is too big, you can select the edge as a loop to make it smaller with the scale gizmo. Use the relax brush tool and other tools described earlier to give the t-shirt a natural S-shaped pose. Once the pose shape is complete, collapse the mirror modifier. You now have a mesh ready to apply rigging to. Let's use the Zepeto helper file to make rigging easier. After unpacking the weight transfer mesh prefab instance from the hierarchy, make a copy of the hips object located under the transfer mesh. Drag it into the t-shirt already created. Then rename the copied hips bone object. After confirming that the hierarchy has been created, click the Rigging tab in the UModeler X inspector. You can check that there is a warning that you need to set the root bone. Drag the bone object you just put under t-shirt object in the hierarchy and drop it into the root bone slot. After confirming that the warning is gone, click the Start Rigging button. When you enter rigging mode, you'll see the bone structure overlapped with your model. We're going to use the weight transfer tool to make rigging easy here without having to do it manually. The weight transfer is a feature that gets weight data from a mesh that already has weight values. Click the weight transfer tool and turn on the first option called is Raycast. You'll see an empty slot at the bottom. This is where you should place the reference mesh to get the weight values from. Drag the weight transfer mesh in the hierarchy that you first imported and place it here. Then press the transfer button and wait 2 or 3 seconds. The weight values were automatically transferred to the t-shirt mesh. To verify, hold down Shift in the scene and select a bone and rotate it. If the t-shirt mesh is animated according to the bone movement, the rigging is successful. This time, you'll use the painting mode to add some color and patterns to the t-shirt. In the modeling mode, click the Editor button to open the UV editor. For painting, UVs must be unwrapped from the model. Unwrapping is the process of creating a flat 2D representation of a 3D model. This is necessary in order to apply textures, colors, and other visual details to the 3D model's surface. After selecting faces you want to unwrap, run an Unwrap tool in the Unwrap group for unwrapping. Normally, you'll want to group faces that are connected to each other and facing similar directions and unwrap them. When you run the Plane Unwrap tool with faces selected, you'll spread them on a plane. Selecting the entire faces for plane unwrapping will cause overlapped faces on 2D, so unwrap by selecting only half sections. After unwrapping one side, use the Invert Select tool to unwrap the other side so that any faces aren't missing. Any overlap after unwrapping can be fixed by selecting the elements and moving them directly to avoid overlap. A good rule of thumb is to place the large parts at first and spread the less visible sides in the remaining space. A group of adjacent unwrapped faces is called an island element. Click the island icon at the top of the editor to select islands and resize them using the gizmos to position them appropriately. If you have symmetrical parts that are exactly the same color, you can overlap them to save space. In UV Editor, you can easily rotate, flip, and other transformations using the tools in the Quick Transform group. Here, I used the 90-degree rotation tool twice to rotate it 180 degrees. In this example, the outer sides of the t-shirt are unwrapped to be larger and the sides that roll inward are unwrapped to be smaller. You can also edit selected elements inside the UV editor using the Move, Rotate, and Scale gizmos as you do in 3D modeling. Once you've done unwrapping, go to the Painting tab for coloring. As with the rigging mode, you'll see some options before you start. Select a resolution and choose a Zepeto template. Pick a background color that you want to see by default and hit the Start Painting button to get started. To paint while viewing the plane with the UV stretched out, you click the Editor button and open the Painting 2D Editor window. When you use the brush tool to paint a 3D model, painting happens synchronously in the Painting 2D window. Let's pick a color from the palette and select the brush tool to paint directly on top of the 3D model in the scene view. As you change properties like size, intensity, and spacing, you can preview the pattern the brush will create at the top of the painting inspector. As you rub the brush over the mesh by mouse dragging, you'll see the color painted as the properties of the brush. You can use the Rect Fill tool to easily fill color with a face or the selection area too. The Rect Fill tool supports a number of different painting modes. The Polygonal Fill mode, which is primarily used to paint faces or polygons, and Rect Fill mode, which is used to paint all faces in a rectangular range at once. This is useful for quickly colorizing multiple faces. All painting tools are available in both the 3D and 2D editors. You happen to have a problem with colors looking weird at the UV boundaries. To quickly fix this, let's use the Dilation tool, which automatically scales the color of the boundary in the outer direction. Click the Dilation tool button in the Layers group to see the color extend to the surroundings in the Painting 2D window. And in the Scene view you can see that this resolves the odd-looking areas. Color the t-shirt using the tools and the desirable colors. I'm currently using the polygonal and rect fill modes in the rect fill tool to paint the neck and sleeves. Now let's use stickers, which can be handy for painting in rather complex patterns. In the Layers window, create a sticker layer using the plus button. The bottom layers are covered by the top layer in the layers order. Drag an image file into the albedo slot for the sticker layer to have a pattern. If you move the sticker layer to the top, the texture you put into the albedo will fit full size into the unwrapped space and it is drawn very large. You'll need to re-sticker it to make it the right size. The sticker brush follows in the form of a box, and you can change its size or orientation by holding down the Ctrl key and moving the mouse. Once you've got the right size and orientation, click on it and you'll see the sticker you put in the image slot take the desired size and orientation. A sticker layer can have only one image, so if you want to add more stickers, add new sticker layers. Unnecessary layers can be removed with the minus button. When you're done, use the Export button to extract the created painting data as an image. All of the painting layers are combined into a single image. This time, let's move on to the Vertex Masking. The masking process is meant to mark areas of the body that shouldn't be visible when wearing clothing. Erase the weight transfer mesh pose object that were used for rigging. From the project window, drag and drop the mask prefab file inside the provided Zepeto helper package folder into the scene. Set the coordinates of the resulting mask prefab instance to 0, 0, 0. Unpack the mask prefab instance object and drag it to the bottom of the t-shirt object in the hierarchy. Create a structure with the t-shirt object at the top and the hips object and mask object below it. Now let's mark the mask information of the vertices. Select the mask object and run the Vertex Color tool in the surface group of the modeling mode. You only use two colors, white where it should be visible and black where it shouldn't. Make sure that the color code for white is 255, 255, 255 and the color code for black is 0, 0, 0. By default, they are all white. So you choose black, select the vertices that will be covered by the t-shirt, and press Apply button to paint it in black. Toggle the t-shirt object on and off in the hierarchy window to see the masking area. If the black area is visible outside the t-shirt, paint over it again in white to make it invisible. Rather than painting black all the way to the border of the sleeve, we recommend painting black just a little further in than the border of the t-shirt. Your mask object is now ready. The whole process of creating the t-shirt item has been finished. Finally, let's export to a Zepeto package file to be ready to upload it to the Zepeto platform. First, make sure that the bone object and mask object are located below the t-shirt object in the hierarchy. Make sure the name of the mask object is mask. Select the topmost t-shirt object and click the Export button in the UModeler X inspector. The export window will appear. If you see a warning message, take actions accordingly. Click the Export button below to export as a file to a desirable folder. Open the playground scene file in the project window provided by Zepeto Studio. Open the top prefab t-shirt prefab file, which is the file that was created when you exported it to the Zepeto package, and click on the material file inside. Then the material properties are visible in the inspector. Drag and drop the top albedo file created during the painting process into an empty slot next to the albedo property. Press the play button at the top to see the Zepeto avatar standing in the scene view. When you select the loader object in the hierarchy window while it's running, a slot will appear in the inspector. Since what you created is top close, enable the close top slot and drag the exported Zepeto item there. You'll see the t-shirt you created yourself. Check the mesh in various poses and upload it to your Zepeto account for verification. Check it out in Zepeto, and if it looks good, you're done. Congratulations!